I was on my way to my annual health checkup when I suddenly realized I had left my hearing aid at home. Annoyed with myself, I turned the truck around. When I pulled into the driveway, I heard my daughter and her husband arguing inside the kitchen. "Tonight, we finish it." I stepped closer to the open window, holding my breath. What I heard next made my stomach drop, and the ground feel unsteady beneath my boots. In that moment, I understood I couldn't walk through my own front door, and if I wanted to survive what they were planning, I had to disappear before they knew I was there. Welcome back to Family Revenge Stories, and thank you for being here. If you're still watching, take a second and comment below. Where in the world are you tuning in from right now? And what's the temperature outside your window? I'm always amazed by how many countries and time zones this channel connects. And just so you know, this narrative includes certain HUKU elements for entertainment and educational value. Any resemblance to real names or locations is coincidental, but the message behind it is powerful and worth hearing. The October sunrise painted the Bitterroot Mountains in shades of copper and gold as I walked the fence line behind the barn. 5:30 came early most mornings, but after 43 years of ranching, my body didn't know any other way. The frost crunched beneath my boots, Montana's way of reminding you winter was always just around the corner. I checked the water trough by the south pasture. The 120 head of black Angus were already stirring their breath, rising in small clouds against the morning chill. This routine checking cattle mending fence, keeping an eye on the land, it was as natural to me as breathing. Vivian used to say I had dirt in my veins instead of blood. She'd been gone 5 years now, but I still heard her voice sometimes carried on the wind that swept down from the high country. The main house stood quiet as I finished my morning rounds. Audrey and Randall had driven up from Bozeman Friday evening, said they wanted to spend the weekend help out around the place. It was unusual. My daughter practiced law in the city, and her husband worked in some kind of financial consulting. They weren't exactly the ranch visit type, especially not in late October when the temperature barely cracked 40 degrees. I glanced at my watch. 7 o'clock. The cardiology appointment in Livingston was at 7:30, just the annual checkup, nothing serious. Doctor. Beverly Harper had been monitoring my ticker for 15 years, and so far the old engine was holding up just fine. I grabbed my truck keys from the hook by the kitchen door and started down the gravel drive. The drive to Livingston usually took 45 minutes, but I'd made it in 40 plenty of times. The 2-lane highway wound through ranch country past properties I'd known my whole life. The Donnelly place, the old McIntyre spread that got sold off to some California outfit 5 years back. This land had stories, and I knew every one of them. I was maybe 10 miles out when I reached up to adjust my hearing aid and felt nothing but my ear. My stomach dropped. The device was sitting on the bathroom counter right next to Vivian's old soap dish, the blue ceramic one she'd brought back from that trip to Santa Fe. I could picture it exactly sitting there in the morning light. I pulled over onto the shoulder and sat for a moment, weighing my options. Dr. Harper's nurse would need to explain the test results, go over the medication schedule. Without the hearing aid, I'd miss half of what she said. These appointments took months to schedule, but showing up unable to hear properly seemed pointless. I checked my watch again. 7:15. If I turned around now, I could grab the device and call from home to reschedule. It wasn't ideal, but it made more sense than sitting in that waiting room, nodding and pretending I understood. The decision made, I swung the truck around and headed back toward the ranch. The October sun had climbed higher by the time I turned down my drive, 7:40 by my watch. The whole detour had taken maybe 30 minutes. I parked by the side of the house near the kitchen entrance and killed the engine. The place sat quiet just the way I'd left it. I climbed out my boots, hitting gravel with the soft crunch that comes from years of knowing how to move quietly. Ranching teaches you that how to approach a spooked horse, how to check on cattle without disturbing the herd. You learn to read the land, to move like you belong there. That's when I heard the voices. The kitchen window was cracked open, Audrey's doing probably. She always said the house needed fresh air, even when it was cold enough to see your breath. The voices drifted out sharp and clear in the still morning air. And tonight, Audrey, we need to finalize this. Randall's voice. That careful, measured tone he used when talking about money, but sharper now, more insistent. I stopped walking. My hand found the porch railing, the wood smooth under my palm from 40 years of use. Vivian and I had built this railing together back when Audrey was still in elementary school. I don't know, Randall. Audrey's voice quieter. Not the warm tone she used with me, but something uncertain, strained. This feels... The evaluation is scheduled for next week. Randall cut her off. Once we establish the baseline, the guardianship petition moves forward. We've been over this. My chest tightened. Guardianship. The word hung in the cold air like something you could reach out and touch. But what if he finds out? Audrey asked. I could hear the worry in her voice, the kind that comes from doubt, from second thoughts. What if he won't? Dr. Nash is reliable. He understands the situation. Randall's voice dropped lower, but I could still hear him clearly. My hearing wasn't perfect, but it wasn't that bad. Not when people were talking this loud, this close. The assessment will show exactly what we need it to show. I moved closer to the window, my rancher's instinct telling me to stay quiet to gather information before acting. The frost-covered grass muffled my footsteps. Nah, 3.1 million, Audrey. Randall again, his tone taking on that edge he got when closing a deal. That's just the land value. The cattle equipment water rights we're looking at close to 4 million total. But we need to move before he changes anything. Before he talks to anyone who might complicate things. The numbers hit me like a physical blow. They weren't talking about helping me. They weren't talking about my health or my welfare. They were talking about the value of everything Vivian and I had built. They were talking about taking it. Once guardianship is granted, we have full control, Randall continued. Financial decisions, medical decisions, everything. The attorney confirmed it. He won't be able to fight it. The system doesn't work that way. And Brian Lauren. Audrey's voice was small now, hesitant. Your brother's in Seattle. He barely calls right, and your sister's got her own life in Billings. They won't interfere. They never have. By the time they even hear about it, everything will be settled. There was a pause. I could picture them standing in my kitchen in the house Vivian and I had filled with 40 years of memories. The silence stretched out, broken only by the distant call of a hawk riding the thermals above the eastern ridge. Okay, Audrey finally said. Her voice was barely a whisper. Okay. But Randall, if this goes wrong... It won't, trust me. I stood frozen beside my own house, my hand gripping the porch railing that Vivian and I had built together 4 decades ago. My daughter, my Audrey, was inside, being pushed into discussing guardianship evaluations, assessments, and the exact value of my life's work. And she was wavering. The morning cold had nothing on the chill spreading through my chest. You said I didn't go inside. Ranchers learn early that sometimes you need distance to think clearly, which is why I'd spent 48 winters checking fence lines whenever problems felt bigger than the house could hold. My boots carried me back to the truck on instinct. The engine turned over with its familiar rumble, and I eased down the drive away from the voices still murmuring through that cracked kitchen window. The gravel crunched under my tires, a sound that had marked my comings and goings for 4 decades. Today, it felt like leaving something behind. The highway stretched out before me empty in the late morning light. I should have been at Dr. Harper's office an hour ago. The missed appointment sat in my mind like a stone, but my hands stayed steady on the wheel. 43 years of ranching teaches you to compartmentalize. You don't fix fence when a calf is breeching. You don't worry about hay prices when a storm is coming. You handle what's in front of you, then you handle what's next. What was in front of me was the need to appear normal, to not let them know I'd heard, to buy time. I pulled into a gas station just outside Livingston and used the payphone. Betty answered on the second ring at Dr. Harper's office, her familiar voice warm with recognition. "Ah, Graham, we were wondering what happened to you." Chkaktakuman. I said the lie coming easier than it should have. "Think I can squeeze in this afternoon?" "Let me check." "You're in luck. We had a cancellation at 2. Can you make that, I'll be there." The hours between stretched long. I drove the back roads, letting muscle memory handle the steering while my mind worked through what I'd heard. Guardianship petition. Evaluation. Dr. Nash. 3.1 million. The words cycled through my head like cattle moving through a chute, each one getting examined, catalogued, set aside for later use. Audrey wasn't always like this. She'd grown up helping with the haying, learning to read weather patterns, understanding the value of patience and hard work. Vivian used to say our daughter had ranching in her blood, even if she chose courtrooms instead of pastures. When had that changed? When had my daughter started seeing me as an obstacle instead of her father? Or maybe she hadn't. Maybe someone had taught her to. The thought settled cold in my gut. Randall's voice had been the insistent one, the pushing one. Audrey's had wavered, questioned. "What if he finds out?" she'd asked. Not the words of someone fully committed. Not yet. Vivian always said I was too curious for my own good. She'd be proven right again. By the time I pulled into Dr. Harper's office, I'd made my decision. Investigation, not confrontation. Evidence, not accusations. The element of surprise was the only advantage I had, and I wasn't about to waste it on an emotional scene that would accomplish nothing, except warning them I knew. Betty waved me back with a smile. The familiar routine of the examination room felt surreal: blood pressure, cuff, stethoscope. The doctors practiced questions. Dr. Harper had been monitoring my heart since I turned 53. She knew every beat, every rhythm. "Blood pressure's excellent," she said, making notes on her chart. 128/78. "Heart sounds strong." "How's the exercise tolerance?" "Same as always. Morning rounds, fence work, moving cattle. No different than 10 years ago." She nodded, continuing her examination. The cognitive questions came next: date, time, recent events, simple memory tests. I'd done them every year, but today they felt weighted with meaning I couldn't share. You're doing great, Graham," Dr. Harper said, finally setting down her pen. "Honestly, you're healthier than people half your age. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." The irony hit like a fist. My daughter was somewhere planning to have me declared incompetent, while my doctor was confirming the exact opposite. The dissonance was almost funny. Almost. "Everything okay?" Dr. Harper asked, catching something in my expression. "Fine. Just thinking about all the work waiting back at the ranch." She smiled. "Well, you're more than fit to handle it. Same time next year." Sounds good." I left with a clean bill of health, documented in my medical records. It wasn't much, but it was something. Evidence. Proof. The first piece of a puzzle I was only beginning to understand. The drive home gave me time to think strategically. If Audrey believed I was declining, someone had convinced her of it. If she mentioned evaluations, they'd already arranged one. If they were discussing guardianship, they'd researched the process. This wasn't a spontaneous conversation. This was a plan already in motion, and I'd been completely blind to it. How long had this been going on? Weeks, months. How many visits had there been? How many phone calls? How many careful questions designed to build a case I never saw coming? The questions multiplied, but the path forward was clear. I needed scope. How extensive was this plan? I needed evidence. What exactly were they planning, and how far along were they? And most critically, I needed allies. Because whatever was coming, I couldn't face it alone. I pulled into the ranch drive just after noon. Audrey's car was gone. The house sat quiet, innocent, as if betrayal hadn't been discussed in my kitchen just hours ago. I walked inside, the familiar creak of the door, the smell of coffee still lingering from morning. Everything looked the same. Nothing was. I sat at the kitchen table, the one Vivian had refinished 20 years ago, and pulled out a notepad. The kind I used for tracking cattle weights and feed schedules. Today it would serve a different purpose. I started writing, Item 1. Find out who's helping them. Dr. Nash was a name I didn't recognize, but doctors kept records, had reputations. Someone would know him. Item 2. Find out how long this has been going on. Phone records, maybe. Visits I'd dismissed as normal. Patterns I'd missed. Item 3. Make sure they never see me coming. The hardest one, the most important one. Every instinct I had screamed to confront Audrey, to demand answers, to fight this head-on, like I'd fought every challenge in 43 years of ranching. But ranchers also know when to be patient, when to watch and wait, when to let the other side think they're winning right up until the moment you prove them wrong. I looked down at the list, the words stark against the lined paper. Somewhere in Bozeman, Randall and Audrey were probably celebrating, thinking their plan was on track, thinking I was oblivious. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about a lot of things, but they wouldn't know it until I was ready. I once tracked a mountain lion through 3 feet of spring snow. I once found lost cattle in a summer thunderstorm when visibility dropped to 10 feet. Tracking my daughter's plans required the same patience and the same refusal to show your hand too early. Monday morning, I sat at Vivian's old desk in the study. She'd organized everything with the precision of a woman who understood that ranch life required systems. Her filing cabinet still held years of records, cattle sales equipment, purchases, tax documents. Everything a person would need to prove competence if it came to that. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in 15 years. Marcus Quinn answered on the 3rd ring. Quinn Investigations. Marcus, it's Graham Foster, from the Willow Creek Ranch. A pause, then recognition. Graham. Been a long time. That cattle theft case back in, what was it, 2009? 2009. You found those missing steers in 3 days. Good memory. What can I do for you? I chose my words carefully. I need someone to look into a situation. Family matter. Sensitive. I'm listening. My daughter and her husband are planning to file for guardianship. They think I'm declining. I'm not. I need to know what they're planning, who's helping them, and how far along they are. Marcus let out a low whistle. That's a hell of a thing. You sure about this? I heard them discussing it in my own kitchen. Okay. I'll need details. Everything you've got. I spent the next 20 minutes laying it out, the overheard conversation, the mention of Dr. Nash, the evaluation scheduled for next week, the 3.1 million figure. Marcus took notes, asked clarifying questions, worked with the efficiency I remembered. I can start today, he said finally. A background check on the son-in-law financial records, if we can access them legally, information on this Dr. Nash character. You mentioned he's in geriatric psychiatry. That's what they said. I've never heard of him. I'll find out everything there is to know. One more thing, Graham, you need to document your own competence. Daily activities, financial management, medical records, everything. Can you do that? Already started. After I hung up, I pulled out my phone and started recording. First video, entry, date, time, morning routine, already completed. Fed cattle, checked water systems, repaired the gate latch on the south pasture. Recited the current cattle count, hay inventory, feed costs per head. The kind of detailed management that doesn't come from a failing mind. Then I turned to the computer, a skill Vivian had insisted I learn 10 years ago, despite my protests. The Montana guardianship statutes loaded slowly on the ranch's internet connection, but I had patience. Ranching teaches you that. The law was clearer than I'd hoped, and worse than I'd feared. 2 family members could petition. A medical evaluation was required. A court hearing would follow. If the judge found cause, guardianship could be granted full control over finances, medical decisions, even where I lived. The person under guardianship had rights to contest, to hire an attorney, but the burden of proof shifted. Once someone claimed you were incompetent, you had to prove you weren't. I printed every relevant statute, highlighted key passages, started building a file. By Tuesday evening, when Audrey's car pulled up the drive, I documented 2 full days of ranch management, researched 3 Montana elder law attorneys, and compiled 15 years of my medical records showing consistent good health. I'd also learned that Dr. Clifford Nash had a reputation for conducting evaluations that favored whoever paid for them. Information Marcus had uncovered in less than 24 hours. I met them at the door with a smile that felt like it belonged on someone else's face. "Hey there. Wasn't expecting you two tonight. Just thought we'd check in," Audrey said, hugging me. "See how you're doing." "Doing fine. Just finished the evening rounds. You two eat, yet I've got leftover roast from Sunday." Over dinner beef I'd raised myself on grass I'd maintained for 40 years. I watched them with new eyes. Randall's careful questions, Audrey's forced cheerfulness. They were building a case, and every interaction was evidence collection. "Dad, what day is today?" Randall asked, casually cutting his meat. I looked up from my plate. "Tuesday, October 26th. "Why do you ask?" "Just making conversation." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Dad, did you remember to take your blood pressure medication?" Audrey interjected. "Same time every morning for 5 years running, sweetheart. 8 a.m. with breakfast." I watched her face carefully. "Why you worried about something?" "No, I just checking in." They were documenting signs of decline that didn't exist. Testing my memory, my medication compliance, my awareness of dates and times. Every question designed to expose weakness. What they didn't know was that I was documenting them right back. The phone in my shirt pocket was recording audio. The time-stamped file would show me answering every question correctly, demonstrating full awareness, managing complex ranch operations without hesitation. Randall shifted tactics. "How's the ranch finances looking? Property taxes coming due soon, aren't they?" "Paid them last week. October 15th deadline. Been paying them on time for 43 years. I took a sip of water. "You interested in ranch finances, Randall?" "Just curious how everything works." "Well, it works fine. Revenue from cattle sales runs about $150,000 to $180,000 annually. Operating costs around $100,000. Leaves me comfortable, plus I've got savings. The land's paid off has been since 1998. Want me to walk you through the spreadsheets?" His smile tightened. "That's not necessary." Audrey jumped in. "Dad, we're just glad you're managing everything so well." The irony wasn't lost on me. They needed me to be declining, but I kept demonstrating the opposite. It must have been frustrating. After they left, Audrey hugging me goodbye, Randall shaking my hand with that politician's grip. I walked through the house, turning off lights, locking doors. The nightly routine I'd done for 4 decades. That's when I saw it. A business card on the coffee table, partially hidden under a magazine. Dr. Clifford Nash, Geriatric Psychiatry, with a Bozeman address and phone number. Randall must have dropped it. Accidentally or intentionally, I couldn't tell. Maybe he wanted me to find it. Wanted me to call and schedule an appointment out of confusion or concern. Maybe he was just careless. Either way, it was a gift. I photographed both sides of the card, with my phone capturing every detail in sharp focus. Then I texted the images to Marcus with a message, "Find out everything about this doctor. I think he's part of the plan." Marcus Quinn called back within 18 hours. I'd learned that when a private investigator works that fast, the news is usually bad, or the trail was obvious enough that anyone looking would have found it. "Graham, you sitting down." His voice carried that careful tone people use before dropping something heavy. I was in the study, Vivian's organized files spread across the desk. I'm listening. Dr. Clifford Nash. Licensed since 2003, clean record technically. But over the past decade, he's conducted 47 guardianship evaluations. 43 resulted in recommendations for full guardianship. That's 91%. State average is 40%. He specializes in finding incompetence. My hand tightened on the phone. What else? Your son-in-law's finances are a disaster. Credit card debt in the mid-5 figures, behind on rent twice last year. His consulting business grossed $32,000. That's not a living, Graham. That's drowning. The pieces clicked into place, each one harder than the last. Here's where it gets interesting, Marcus continued. Randall's father, Raymond Pierce, 72, lives in Bozeman. 6 months ago, he inherited $2.1 million from his deceased brother. Probate cleared in August. My chest tightened. His father, retired principal, lives alone. And Graham, 3 weeks ago, Craig Pierce visited a guardianship attorney. Craig is Randall's older brother. I've got the appointment on record. No, 2 fathers, 1 scheme. That's my read. Randall targets you $3.1 million. Craig targets Raymond $2.1 million. Both sons broke. Both fathers with significant assets. Both guardianship petitions in the works. Vivian used to say coincidences were just patterns you hadn't recognized yet. This wasn't coincidence. This was coordination. Send me everything on Raymond Pierce, I said. I need to see what's happening on his end. After we hung up, I spent 2 hours researching Raymond online. Retired educator, library volunteer, widower for 8 years, 2 sons, Craig and Randall. He looked like what he was, a decent man who'd spent his life teaching teenagers algebra and coaching chess club. He had no idea his sons were circling like wolves. The drive to Bozeman took 90 minutes, the October sun setting behind the Bridger Range. Raymond's address led to a quiet neighborhood of older homes, white siding, blue shutters, a neat lawn showing someone still cared. I parked half a block away. Lights glowed inside. He was home. I'd been there maybe 15 minutes when the front door opened. A man in his mid-40s stepped out, tall, business casual, carrying a leather briefcase. He checked his watch with obvious irritation, then pulled out his phone as he walked to his car. His body language screamed frustration. Whatever he'd come for, he hadn't gotten it. Craig Pierce. Had to be. Same jawline as Randall, same build, but older. I raised my phone and photographed license plate, face, timestamp. Craig climbed into a silver Audi, slammed the door harder than necessary, and sat on his phone. Angry conversation. Failed mission. If Randall and Craig were working together, and the evidence pointed that way, both fathers were targets. Raymond needed to know. But I needed proof solid enough he couldn't dismiss it. Couldn't explain it away with the natural desire to believe the best about your children. I knew that desire. I was fighting it myself. My phone buzzed. Marcus found something else, sending screenshots. 3 images loaded. Browser search history time-stamped. Guardianship for incapacitated parents. Montana. April 12, 2024. Memory care facilities, Bozeman cost. April 20th, 2024. Average lifespan dementia patients. May 3rd, 2024. Elder care attorneys, Montana guardianship. May 15th, 2024. How long does guardianship process take? June 8th, 2024. April, right after Raymond's inheritance, cleared probate. Not even a month later, Randall had started researching how to take control of a parent. My phone rang. You see the timeline? Marcus asked. I'm looking at it. This isn't impulsive, Graham. This is researched, planned, calculated. They've been hunting you for 6 months. I stared at Raymond's house, imagining the man inside. a retired principal who'd spent his life teaching helping kids learn, a widower maintaining his late wife's garden volunteering at the library, a father who thought his son's visits were genuine concern. He needs to know, I said, but you need an approach strategy. You can't just knock on his door and tell him his sons are planning to take his money. He'll think you're the crazy one. And then I need more evidence first. I'm working on it. Give me another day. In the meantime, watch your back. If they suspect you're onto them, they might accelerate. The evaluation with Dr. Nash, when is it? Next week. That's your deadline. Once you sit for that evaluation, they start building their official case. I ended the call and sat in the darkening street watching lights come on in houses. Normal families having normal evenings. Meanwhile, two sons were planning to destroy their fathers for money. The final text from Marcus came through. Found this too. Randall searched average lifespan dementia patients 3 different times. May, June, and August. This isn't impulsive, Graham. This is researched, planned, calculated. They've been hunting you for 6 months. Both of you. I sat with those words glowing on my phone screen in the gathering darkness, the weight of 6 months of predatory planning settling into my bones. Then I put the truck in gear and headed home, one truth crystallizing with absolute clarity. Whatever happened next, I wasn't facing it alone. Raymond Pierce and I were connected now, whether we knew each other or not. And they'd made a critical mistake. They'd underestimated both of us. I'd never properly met Raymond Pierce. Saw him twice at family gatherings, shook hands, exchanged pleasantries about weather and grandchildren that didn't exist yet. Now I was about to tell him his sons were planning to take everything. Vivian taught me that harsh truths should come with evidence, not accusations. So I spent Thursday night organizing files, photos of Craig leaving Raymond's house, Marcus's report on Dr. Nash, screenshots of Randall's search history, the timeline showing 6 months of predatory planning. Everything documented, time-stamped, undeniable. Friday morning I dialed Raymond's number. Marcus had provided it along with his daily routine coffee at 8 library volunteer shift, at 10 groceries on Wednesdays. A structured life. The kind that incompetent people don't maintain. He answered on the 4th ring. Hello. Mr. Pierce. This is Graham Foster. We met at Audrey's wedding. And that Christmas, what was it, 5 years back? His voice carried the measured tone of a man who'd spent 30 years managing teenagers. Is everything all right? No, sir, it's not. We need to talk about our sons. In person. Today, if possible. A pause. I could hear him thinking, processing. What's this about, Graham? I'd rather explain face to face, but it involves Randall and Craig and it's urgent. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Another pause longer. The Meadowlark Cafe on Main Street, 9 o'clock. I'll be there. The Meadowlark was the kind of place that hadn't changed in 40 years. Vinyl booths, counter-service coffee that could strip paint. I arrived early, chose a corner booth with a view of the door. When Raymond walked in at 9 sharp, I recognized him immediately, despite the years. Tall, lean, silver hair, neatly combed. He moved like someone still teaching invisible students to walk quietly in hallways. He spotted me, nodded, ordered coffee at the counter, then slid into the booth across from me. Graham. He extended his hand. We shook firm grip, steady eye contact. Thank you for coming. You sounded serious on the phone. What's going on? I pulled out my phone, opened the photo of Craig leaving his house. This was taken Wednesday evening, outside your home. Raymond studied it. That's Craig. He visits sometimes. What? He was carrying a briefcase, left frustrated. Got on his phone, immediately angry conversation. I swiped to the next photo close-up of Craig's face. Shot, does he usually visit in business clothes with documents? He brought some papers last week. power of attorney forms. Said it was precautionary in case something happened to me. Did you sign? No. Raymond set down his coffee cup carefully. It felt rushed, too insistent. I said I wanted to think about it. I pulled out Marcus's printed report, slid it across the table. Dr. Clifford Nash, geriatric psychiatrist. He's conducted 47 guardianship evaluations in the past decade. 43 resulted in recommendations for full guardianship. 91% success rate when the state average is 40. He's known for finding incompetence whether it exists or not. Raymond read slowly, his educator's brain processing information methodically. Why are you showing me this? Because Randall and my daughter mentioned him in a conversation I overheard about filing for guardianship. For me, I pulled out the next document, Randall's financial records. My son-in-law is drowning financially. $32,000 annual income, 5-figure credit card debt, behind on rent. He needs money desperately. Randall's always been impulsive with finances. It's more than impulsive. I showed him the search history screenshots. These are from Randall's computer. Guardianship for incapacitated parents, Montana. Memory care facilities cost. Average lifespan dementia patients. Deal, all searched starting in April, right after your inheritance cleared probate. Raymond's face went pale. He stared at the timestamps, the systematic progression of research. My brother died in March. The estate settled in August. $2.1 million. And suddenly both your sons became very concerned about your well-being. No. Raymond shook his head. Craig wouldn't. Craig visited a guardianship attorney 3 weeks ago. It's on record. The coffee shop noise faded into background. Raymond sat frozen, staring at evidence that his sons, both of them, were planning to take control of his life. They think I'm declining too, I said quietly. My daughter and Randall are building a case. Medical evaluations with Dr. Nash, questions about my memory and medication, financial inquiries, disguised as concern. The ranch is worth $3.1 million. Add that to your 2.1, and we're talking 5.4 million reasons for our children to declare us incompetent. I don't understand. Raymond's voice cracked slightly. I raised them. Craig was student body president. Randall made honor roll. I put them through college. How can they? Because they don't see us as fathers anymore. They see assets with expiration dates. Raymond reached for his wallet with shaking hands, pulled out a folded letter. This came 3 weeks ago. I threw it away then. I don't know why, but I retrieved it. He smoothed it on the table. From Dr. Nash's office, suggesting a cognitive evaluation and discussing supervised living arrangements. I thought it was a mistake, some kind of marketing scam. I stared at the letterhead, same as the business card I'd found. Same doctor, same script. It wasn't a mistake, I said. They sent it before Craig started pushing the power of attorney, before the attorney visit. They're building cases against both of us. Medical documentation, legal pressure, family concern. This isn't spontaneous, Raymond. This is systematic. He looked up at me, and I saw the same betrayal I felt every time I thought about Audrey's voice through that kitchen window. What do? We prove we're not the helpless old men they think we are, and we make sure they face consequences. How that's documentation. I'm recording everything: ranch management, financial decisions, medical records. I've hired a private investigator. I need you to do the same. Document your competence, your daily activities, your cognitive clarity. Refuse to sign anything they bring you. Don't sit for any evaluations they schedule. Raymond nodded slowly, his principal's mind organizing information into action steps. They'll escalate if we refuse. Let them. We need them to make mistakes. Aggressive ones, the kind that look bad in court. Court. That's where this ends, Raymond. Either they file for guardianship and we fight it, or we file first elder abuse, financial exploitation, attempted fraud. But we need ironclad evidence before we move. He absorbed that, then met my eyes. I never thought I'd be fighting my own sons. Neither did I. The words tasted bitter. But here we are. We spent another 20 minutes working through details. Raymond would start keeping a daily log: activities, decisions, conversations. He'd get independent medical evaluations. He'd change his bank passwords, review his accounts for any unusual activity. We'd communicate daily, share information, coordinate our defense. When we finally stood to leave, Raymond extended his hand again. Thank you for warning me. If you hadn't. We're in this together now. Two fathers against sons who forgot what family means. Shitila, he nodded, his jaw set with the same determination I'd seen him use when refusing to sign Craig's power of attorney forms. They underestimated us. They did. And that's going to be their biggest mistake. We exchanged phone numbers, agreed to call every evening at 7, a check-in system, proof we were both still independent, still sharp. Made a pact, no confrontation, until the evidence was undeniable. Let them think we were oblivious while we built the case that would destroy their plans. I walked Raymond to his car, watched him drive away toward a life that would never look the same. The October morning was crisp, the kind of day Vivian used to love: clear skies, golden aspens against the mountains, air that tasted like winter was coming. My phone rang before I'd even reached my truck. Marcus Quinn. Graham, I found something about Randall you need to hear. Stasa, his voice carried that careful tone, the one that preceded bad news getting worse. It involves his sister-in-law, Courtney. I think this scheme goes deeper than family greed. In 48 years of ranching, I'd learned that predators rarely hunt alone. They work in packs, exploit weaknesses, and always have more than one angle of attack. Randall was no exception. Saturday evening found me at the kitchen table, the same one where Vivian used to grade her volunteer literacy students' assignments. Now it held a different kind of education. Marcus Quinn's encrypted files spread across my laptop screen, each one revealing another layer of betrayal I hadn't seen coming. The call had come that morning. Marcus's voice carrying that careful neutrality he used when the news was worse than expected. Graham, I've got the financial records you wanted, but I found something else. Before I share what Marcus uncovered, the evidence that changed everything about how I saw this conspiracy, I need to know you're still here with me. On a scale of 1 to 10, how shocked do you think I was when I saw what my detective found? Drop your number in the comments right now. Are we talking a 5 mildly surprised, or a 10 completely blindsided? Fair warning. This story includes some fictionalized details crafted for educational purposes. If that's not what you're looking for, feel free to exit now and explore other content. Something you need to see before we talk strategy. Send it. Encrypted files. Password is your ranch name, all lowercase, no spaces. Call me after you've looked. The files loaded slowly on the ranch internet. First image: Randall and Courtney at a restaurant in Billings, their body language leaving no room for misinterpretation. His hand on her back, her head tilted toward him in a way that spoke of intimacy beyond family connection. Second image: same two people entering a hotel. Different date 3 weeks later according to the timestamp. Third image: Courtney's credit card statement, charges highlighted in yellow. 3 different hotels over 2 months. Always midweek. Always 2 to 3 hours. I clicked through more photos. 16 meetings documented across 18 months. Every 3 to 4 weeks, the pattern consistent and damning. My phone rang. Marcus, right on schedule. You're looking at them. I'm looking. Timeline starts March of last year. That's when the credit card charges begin. Always Courtney's card. Always hotels and Billings or Great Falls. I've got location data from Randall's phone matching every meeting. This isn't speculation, Graham. This is documentation. 18 months. I did the math in my head. The affair started long before any guardianship planning. Before Randall's financial situation became desperate. Before Raymond's inheritance cleared probate. There's more, Marcus continued. Text messages. Obtained legally through subpoena preparation. Montana law allows certain evidence gathering for anticipated litigation. He sent another file. Screenshots of exchanges between Randall and Courtney. When are you going to leave her, Randall? Soon, after things settle. Courtney, you keep saying that. Randall, I mean it. Just need to handle some financial matters first. Courtney, I can't keep lying to Craig. Randall, you won't have to. Trust me. The messages painted a clear picture. Courtney believed Randall's promises. Thought she was part of a future that extended beyond hotel rooms. She was a willing participant, no question about that. But she was also being played like everyone else. Graham, there's one more thing. Marcus's voice dropped. Audio recording. Directional microphone from public property, legal for licensed investigators in Montana. Hotel balcony, 4th floor, Billings Marriott last week. They didn't know they could be heard. The file loaded. I pressed play. Courtney's voice frustrated and demanding. When are you finally going to leave her, Randall? After the assets are settled. Few more months. Oh, you promised, and I will keep that promise. Randall's voice was smooth, practiced. But if I divorce Audrey now, she gets half of nothing. If I wait until we control Graham's ranch and Raymond's inheritance, I can claim financial hardship. The prenup has provisions for that. A pause. Wind noise against the microphone. Then Courtney again. So this whole guardianship thing is about securing our future. Graham's worth $3.1 million. Raymond's inheritance is $2.1. That's $5.4 million we can access once the guardianships go through. Then I divorce Audrey, claim I'm broke because of legal fees and elder care costs. Prenup kicks in with minimal settlement, and we're free. You, me, and enough money to never worry again. What about Craig? What about him? Randall's voice carried a dismissive edge. He'll be dealing with his own mess when his father's money runs out. He won't have time to worry about us. I stopped the recording, sat back in my chair staring at the laptop screen without really seeing it. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, the walls too close. Randall wasn't just stealing from me and Raymond. He was systematically destroying everyone around him. Craig's marriage, Audrey's trust, Courtney's future, Raymond's independence, my life's work. All of it calculated moves in a game where only he mattered. Vivian used to say she could read people like weather patterns. Watch the small signs predict the coming storm. She'd met Randall twice at the wedding and one Christmas dinner. Afterward, she'd pulled me aside in the kitchen. That young man looks at people like they're tools, Graham, not human beings, just tools to be used. I dismissed it as her being protective of Audrey, told her she was reading too much into a nervous son-in-law trying to make a good impression. Now I understood. She'd seen what I'd missed, the hollowness behind his charm, the calculation in his concern, the complete absence of empathy that made him capable of this. I wondered why Craig seemed so compliant in all this, why he'd go along with stealing from his own father. Now I knew. If Craig wavered, if he showed signs of backing out, Randall had the perfect leverage. The affair, the betrayal, the threat of destroying Craig's marriage if he didn't cooperate. Courtney didn't know she was disposable, a tool to control Craig, and once her usefulness ended, Randall would discard her without a second thought. The recording made that clear. He was planning to claim poverty in the divorce, use the prenup to minimize what Audrey got, then presumably do the same to Courtney when that relationship ran its course. There were betrayals deeper than money. Randall was teaching me that lesson with brutal efficiency. I clicked back to the balcony photo. Randall and Courtney silhouetted against the city lights, her head on his shoulder. She looked content, believed in a future that would never exist. He looked like a man surveying assets. I closed the laptop and sat in the kitchen darkness, Vivian's reading lamp casting long shadows across the table. Outside, the ranch settled into its nighttime rhythms, cattle bedding downwind through the pines, the familiar creaks of a house that had sheltered our family for 4 decades. Everything looked normal. Everything was broken. The question was simple, but the answer wasn't. Did I tell Craig that his brother was having an affair with his wife? Did I hand him that truth? Now watch him explode, possibly turn him into an ally driven by rage and hurt. Or did I use Randall's secret as leverage, let him think he was safe while I built the trap around him? Control the timing of the revelation. For maximum impact, Vivian would say the truth was always better. She believed in honesty, the way she believed in sunrise, fundamental, non-negotiable, the foundation of everything good. But Vivian hadn't heard that recording. Hadn't seen 18 months of calculated manipulation documented in credit card statements and text messages. Hadn't been fighting someone who could sleep with his brother's wife while plotting to steal from both their fathers, all without a trace of conscience. Sometimes the truth was a weapon, and sometimes timing was everything. I'd delivered hard news before. Told ranchers their cattle were sick. Told neighbors their dog had gotten into my herd. But telling a man his brother was sleeping with his wife while plotting to steal their father's money, that was entirely different territory. I called Craig Saturday night, kept it short. We need to talk. Not about your father, about your brother. The pause stretched long. What about Randall? Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., the Silver Spur Diner in Livingston. Come alone. Graham, what's 6 a.m., Craig? Trust me, you'll want to sit down for this. The Silver Spur opened early for ranchers and truckers, strong, coffee-hot breakfast booths with enough privacy for difficult conversations. I arrived at 5:45, chose the corner booth, ordered coffee I didn't drink. Craig walked in at 6 sharp, moving like a man heading to an execution. He slid into the booth across from me, expression wary. This better be important. I'm not happy about showing you this. I pulled the envelope from my jacket. But you need to see it. The first photo slid across the table. Randall and Courtney at a restaurant, his hand covering hers. Craig stared, his face going blank. Second photo, them entering a hotel, timestamp clear. Third photo, their body language leaving no room for misinterpretation. More photos spread across the table like a losing hand of cards. Kissing in a parking lot. Walking together, his arm around her waist. Laughing at shared jokes. Craig's hands shook. The color drained from his face, leaving him gray under fluorescent lights. I let him process. Didn't rush. Sometimes hard truths needed silence. How long? Craig finally whispered. 18 months. That's how far back the evidence goes. He set down a photo, Courtney with her head on Randall's shoulder. 18 months. Credit card records show 16 meetings, always hotels, 3 to 4 week intervals. I showed the statement, highlighted charges visible. Always Courtney's card. Craig's jaw worked, teeth grinding. Why show me this? Because you need to understand what's really happening. Randall needed you compliant. This affair is insurance. If you hesitated about the guardianship plan, he had leverage. The guardianship. Craig looked up sharply. My father. You're saying it was never about care. Randall is after the money. Your father's inheritance, my ranch. 5.4 million combined. And he's been manipulating everyone to get it. I pulled out the balcony recording transcript, highlighted. Craig read slowly. His expression shifted from shock to cold, focused rage. He said this about divorcing Audrey after getting control. His finger stabbed the paper. About claiming poverty, that's his voice. Recorded last week. He's planning to take everything and leave everyone, including Courtney, with nothing. Craig set down the transcript with careful precision movements, suggesting violence barely restrained. My father isn't declining. Is he? No. Neither am I. Full cognitive function, excellent health. The decline is fiction Randall needs to justify guardianship. The silence was different now. Not shock. Something colder. Craig looked up, eyes red-rimmed but dry. What do you need me to do? I needed one truth first. Be honest. Have you been part of planning against your father? Craig's face flushed. Yes. Flat, emotionless. Randall said Dad was declining, having confused moments. I believed him because he's my brother. His voice broke. He's my brother. I know. Craig pressed palms against his eyes, shoulders shaking once before he regained control. When he looked up, his jaw was set. What do you need? Stronger this time. Keep pretending. Act like you don't know about Courtney. Act like you're still helping Randall. We gather evidence, recordings, documents, everything. Then expose him in court where he can't escape. Craig studied me. You want me to work with the person who... He stopped, swallowed. Who destroyed my marriage while stealing from my father. I want you to protect Raymond, get justice, but we do it smart, not loud. Silence stretched. Craig stared at the photos, 18 months of betrayal documented. Finally, teach me. We spent 2 hours in that corner booth. Voices low, planning, methodical. Craig would continue appearing to cooperate, but secretly record everything. Montana was one-party consent. If he was part of the conversation, he could legally document it. He'd photograph documents Randall shared, feed false information about my supposedly declining health, memory lapses that didn't exist, confusion that was fiction. Make Randall think the plan was working while we built our case. Meanwhile, act normal at home. Pretend ignorance about the affair. The hardest part, but necessary. Can you do that? I asked. Live with her knowing what you know. Craig's expression hardened. I spent 18 months living with someone lying to my face every day. I think I can manage a few more weeks. We covered technical details. Phone voice recorder. Cloud storage Randall couldn't access. Document conversations without arousing suspicion. The tradecraft of family betrayal. When we finally stood to leave, the sun was up the parking lot, filling. Craig paused by his car, looked back. Graham, thank you for not letting him destroy my father. I nodded, unable to find words. What I didn't say, what I kept to myself driving back toward Willow Creek, was the truth. I was betting everything on that Craig's anger would last longer than family loyalty. That rage and betrayal would keep him focused through the difficult weeks ahead. That a son's love for his father would prove stronger than a brother's bond already shattered. It was a gamble. But then this whole thing was a gamble, 2 old men and 1 betrayed son against a sociopath who saw people as tools. I just had to hope we were better players than Randall gave us credit for. I'd given Craig the truth wrapped in evidence and cold coffee. Now it was Audrey's turn. But telling a man his brother betrayed him was one thing. Telling your daughter her husband was unfaithful, that required a different kind of courage. I remembered teaching Audrey to ride when she was 7. She fell 7 times before she stayed in the saddle. The question now was whether she'd fall for Randall or stand on her own feet. I called her Monday morning. Audrey, we need to talk. Just you and me. Dad, if this is about the guardianship, it's about Randall. The pause was shorter than Craig's, but I heard the same wariness. Okay. 1 o'clock. The cottonwood was different from the silver spur upscale lunch crowd cloth napkins. Afternoon light softer than dawn's harsh fluorescence. Audrey arrived at 1 sharp, dressed for client meetings, her lawyer's mask already in place. Dad, I really don't think... Please, let me say what I need to say. She nodded, folding her hands on the table. Professional. Composed. I pulled out my phone. I'm going to show you something. Watch it all the way through. The video played 30 seconds of security footage from the Billings Marriott. Randall and Courtney walking to her car, his arm around her waist. At the car, he pulled her close, kissed her in a way that left no room for brotherly affection. The timestamp, 2 weeks ago. I watched Audrey's face. Watched the color drain. Watched her eyes fill with tears that spilled over despite her attempt to blink them away. The video looped. She couldn't look away. How long? Her voice barely a whisper, cracking. 18 months with Craig's wife. Her hand went to her mouth, a small sound escaping. The professional mask shattered. My daughter sat crying silent tears while the video played again. I reached across the table, took her hand. I'm sorry, baby. She pulled away, wiped her eyes, tried to compose herself. Failed. He told me you were declining, that we had to act fast, that it was mercy. I know. He said you were forgetting things, getting confused. She looked up, mascara-smudged eyes red. Dad, what have I done? You loved someone who lied to you. I helped him plan to take your ranch, everything you and Mom built. Her voice rose, cracking. I'm a lawyer. I know what guardianship means. I was helping him take away your rights because I believed. She couldn't finish, both hands over her mouth. I let her process. This wasn't Craig's controlled rage. This was grief mixed with shame, all happening at once. The doctor's appointments he was scheduling, Audrey whispered. Dr. Nash, paid to write assessments supporting guardianship. The care facility brochures, Cotta Meadowbrook Manor, $8,000 a month. A convenient calculation when my ranch is worth over $3 million. Her lawyer's mind started working despite the tears. He researched this. The legal process, timeline, financial structure. 6 months ago, according to my investigator. Her head snapped up. You hired an investigator. How the morning after I overheard you two in the kitchen. You mentioned finishing tonight and guardianship. I knew something was wrong. You've known for over a week. Would you have believed me without proof? Silence. Then softly, no. I would have thought you were paranoid, which is exactly what Randall kept hinting. The manipulation was clear now. Randall had positioned every conversation to make me look declining while making himself look caring. He'd used my daughter's love for me as a weapon against us both. The ranch evaluation, designed to show I couldn't manage the property. And these medication questions, to document supposed confusion. Oh my God. Audrey buried her face in her hands. He's been setting this up for months, and I helped him. You didn't know. I should have. I'm a lawyer, Dad. I should have seen. Her voice broke. The tears came harder, shoulders shaking. I moved around the table, pulled her into a hug. Let her cry against my shoulder like when she was small. My daughter, who'd learned to be strong, falling apart because the man she loved had been using her. When the tears slowed, she pulled back, wiped her face. Dad, I can't go home and look at him knowing you can, and you will. I kept my voice firm, because we need to stop him, not just for me, for Raymond Pierce, Craig's father. Randall is doing the same thing to him. We need evidence, recordings, confessions, things that hold up in court. Can you do that? She wiped her eyes, her gaze hardening beyond tears. What do you need? I pushed a small device across the table. Recording device. Fits in a pocket. Montana is one-party consent. If you're part of the conversation, you can legally record it. When you're ready, make him talk. Make him admit what he's doing, why, how long he's been planning. Can you do that? My daughter looked at the device, then at me. Her jaw set with an echo of that 7-year-old who kept getting back on the horse. Teach me. Acting normal when your world has shattered is harder than any ranch work I'd ever done. But Audrey, Craig, and I each had our roles to play, and Randall wasn't allowed to know we'd cast him as the villain in his own story. Vivian used to do community theater, said the best performances came from truth wrapped in lies. The trick was making Randall think he was directing. Monday evening, family dinner at my ranch. Halfway through pot roast, I paused with my fork. What day is today again? Randall's eyes lit up. Monday, Graham, October 28th. Right, Monday. What he didn't see was Audrey's hand trembling under the table or the recording device in her jacket pocket capturing every word. Tuesday, Audrey wore the wire at home, asked questions like she was planning with him, not against him. How does Dr. Nash's assessment work exactly? Randall explained eagerly. He asks questions designed to show confusion, memory tests with trick answers. The evaluation documents decline whether it exists or not. Nash has done this 40 times, every word recorded, every confession saved. Wednesday, Craig called Randall phone line recording. What's the timeline on Dad's evaluation? Next Monday. Then we file both petitions Tuesday. Satisfaction in Randall's voice. If Raymond lives another 10 years in care, maybe we clear $800,000. If he goes earlier, we're looking at $1.5 million split. Calculating his father's death like a business expense, all documented. Thursday. I drove to the feed store, fumbled counting change, seemed confused about which supplements I needed. Perry Jackson noticed. You all right, Graham? You seem off today. Fine, just tired. Small town talk spread. By evening, Randall had heard the rumors. He smiled when Audrey casually mentioned people in town noticing Dad seemed forgetful. What Randall didn't know was that Perry and I had served on the volunteer fire department together for 15 years. He knew exactly what I was doing. Friday, Audrey steered conversation toward the ranch sale recording in her purse. What happens to the property after guardianship? Randall didn't hesitate. Real estate's worth $3.1 million. Your siblings get inheritance shares eventually, but with guardianship, we control the trust distribution timeline. We could stretch payouts over years. Every detail captured. Saturday. Craig accessed Randall's briefcase, photographed every document. Paid invoice to Dr. Nash $15,000. Draft guardianship petition. LLC formation papers. Timeline spreadsheet calculating care costs against inheritance depletion. 200 photos. All time-stamped. All backed up. Sunday afternoon. We met in a storage unit I'd rented. Spread the evidence across a folding table. 15 hours of recordings. Over 200 photographs. Financial documents showing money paid to Nash, calculations about how long we'd survive. We have enough to destroy him, I said. Now we wait for court. Audrey picked up her phone, scrolled to a recording from Wednesday. You need to hear this one. She pressed play. Randall's voice filled the space, talking to someone on the phone. Audrey's the easiest one. She always feels guilty about everything. You just hint that her father's declining show her some research about elder care, and she convinces herself. Women are emotional like that, you have to use it. Audrey's hands shook holding the phone. I'm going to make him pay for that, she said quietly. You already are, I answered. Every word he says because he thinks you believe him, that's when you're building the trap. Craig spoke for the first time in an hour. When does this end? When the judge hears everything we have. When Randall can't lie his way out because his own words condemn him. We packed the evidence carefully. Marcus would deliver copies to our attorney. The originals stayed locked in that storage unit. That evening, my phone rang. Audrey calling from home, Randall's voice excited in the background. Dr. Nash evaluated your father today, Audrey. The assessment is perfect, significant cognitive decline needs supervised care. Raymond's evaluation is Monday. Both guardianship petitions filed Tuesday morning. We're right on schedule, sweetheart. By Thanksgiving, this'll all be settled. Through the video call, I watched Audrey glance toward where I stood by the sink, holding my coffee mug, pretending to look confused about where to set it down the same spot for 40 years. "That's wonderful news, honey," Audrey said brightly. Randall hung up. Audrey looked directly at the camera, mouthed 2 words, "Tuesday, court." I nodded. The game was on. I'd hired hands for calving season veterinarians for sick cattle contractors to fix the barn. But I'd never hired someone to fight for my right to exist independently. Meet Patrick Sullivan. Vivian used to say good lawyers were like good horses, rare, expensive, but worth every penny. Patrick Sullivan was both. 63 years old, elder law specialist, reputation for making opposing counsel reconsider their own cases. Marcus Quinn had recommended him with one sentence: "He eats guardianship abuse cases for breakfast." Saturday morning found us in Patrick's Bozeman office, me, Audrey Craig, and Raymond Pierce on a laptop screen via video call. The conference table was covered with our evidence, printed transcripts, photos, financial documents, storage drives containing 15 hours of recordings. Patrick spent the first hour reviewing everything in silence. Occasionally, he'd pause, rewind an audio file, make notes on his legal pad. His expression never changed, the kind of professional calm that came from decades of seeing families destroy themselves over money. Finally, he set down his pen and looked at each of us in turn. "Wow, this is one of the clearest conspiracies I've ever seen. You've essentially done my job for me." Audrey, sitting beside me in her own lawyer mode, leaned forward. "What's our strategy?" So normally we'd play defense. But with this amount of evidence, Patrick tapped the stack of transcripts. "We attack." He pulled out a whiteboard, started mapping the timeline. "They file guardianship petitions Tuesday morning, 1 for Graham, 1 for Raymond. Standard procedure is a hearing within 2 weeks. Here's what we do." I watched him work, impressed by the precision. This was a man who understood that elder law wasn't just about contracts and courtrooms. It was about dignity, autonomy, the right to control your own life. "Well, we let them file," Patrick continued. "Don't oppose it initially." In fact, he looked at Craig and Audrey. "You two testify in support of Randall at first." Craig's head snapped up. "What?" "Build his confidence. Let him think he's winning. Then we introduce the recordings. Mid-testimony, you both flip. He won't have time to prepare, no defense strategy, nothing. We bury him with his own words." Audrey's lawyer brain was working. "That's risky. The judge might believe him before we flip." Patrick smiled, not friendly, more like a wolf spotting prey. "Not with what I'm planning." He turned to the whiteboard, started listing points. "We're going to have 4 things they can't counter. 1, medical evidence. I'm arranging evaluations with 3 independent specialists, neurologist, psychiatrist, general practitioner. They'll examine both Graham and Raymond thoroughly, prove full cognitive function, excellent health, sharp decision-making. We'll have those reports filed before the hearing." Raymond's voice came through the laptop speaker. "When?" "This weekend, if possible. I have colleagues who owe me favors." Patrick continued. 2, financial forensics. Craig, you're an accountant. You'll testify about Randall's debts, his LLC structure designed to hide assets payments to Dr. Nash. The money trail proves motive. We show the judge this isn't about care, it's about theft. Craig nodded, his expression grim. "I can do that. 3, community witnesses. Graham, I need ranchers, neighbors, business owners who can testify to your competence. People who've known you for decades. Can you provide that? 20 names by Monday," I said. "It's good. Because juries respond to community standing, and while there's no jury in guardianship hearings, judges are human. They'll listen to people who've watched you manage a ranch for 40 years. Patrick moved to the final point. 4, the recordings. Randall's own words. His plans, his timeline, his cold calculations about how long you'd survive in care. We play them in open court. The judge will hear exactly who he is. He set down the marker. Randall thinks he's playing chess. We're going to show him it was always our board. I leaned forward. When do we move? Patrick's smile widened. They file Tuesday. We file our counter Wednesday: elder abuse, financial exploitation, attempted fraud. Medical evaluations this weekend. Court date probably 2 weeks out. Ladies, gentlemen, we're going to war. The meeting continued for another hour, working through details. Patrick would coordinate the medical evaluations. Marcus Quinn would provide investigative testimony. Audrey would prepare the financial documentation. Craig would organize the LLC paperwork showing Randall's asset hiding structure. Raymond on the screen looked 10 years younger than when we'd first met at the coffee shop. Patrick, what are my chances? With this evidence, 95% they withdraw before trial. If they're stupid enough to proceed 100%, you win. And criminal charges? Sure, that's up to the DA, but I'll recommend it. Elder financial exploitation conspiracy to commit fraud, possibly more, depending on what the prosecutor finds. When the meeting finally broke up, we stood in the parking lot, 3 people bound by betrayal and determination. Raymond had signed off the video call with a promise to be in Montana for the hearing. Audrey grabbed my hand as we walked toward our trucks. Dad, one more thing. Randall's been leaving his phone unlocked lately. He thinks I'm completely on his side. Last night I saw texts with Courtney Craig's wife. They're meeting Monday night. If we can catch them. She looked at Craig. Would that help? Craig's face was stone. Photograph it. Crystal clear. I want him to know that I knew before the court destroys him. I looked at my daughter and this man who weeks ago was working against us. 2 people Randall had manipulated, now united against him. 2 people who'd chosen the hard path of doing right over the easy path of going along. We're really doing this, I said. Audrey squeezed my hand. We really are. I'd been evaluated by veterinarians more times than human doctors. Checking cattle for disease teaches you about thoroughness. But 3 medical specialists in 2 days. That was an entirely different kind of scrutiny. Vivian used to drag me to annual checkups. Said prevention was better than cure. I'd grumbled about wasted time, but she'd been right. Now those years of documented good health were about to become armor. Randall thought he had Dr. Nash's rigged assessment locked in. He didn't know we were building our own. Saturday, 8 a.m. Dr. Judith Manning's office in Billings looked like any neuropsychologist's practice diplomas on the wall bookshelves, full of cognitive science texts, testing materials arranged on a desk. She was methodical, no nonsense, exactly the kind of expert Patrick had promised. Mr. Foster, I'm going to conduct a series of tests evaluating memory, executive function, and cognitive processing. Just answer honestly. There are no right or wrong responses. I'm establishing your baseline. The tests felt both simple and complex. Remembering 3 words, apple, table, penny, then recalling them after 20 minutes of other questions. Drawing a clock face showing 3:15. Identifying patterns in sequences. Solving problems that required planning several steps ahead. Dr. Manning worked through the evaluation with practiced efficiency. No judgment, no leading questions, just assessment. After 90 minutes, she set down her clipboard. Mr. Foster, you're performing better than most 50-year-olds I test. Your memory is excellent. Executive function is above average for your age group. Pattern recognition is sharp. Frankly, whoever suggested you needed guardianship evaluation hasn't spent 5 minutes actually assessing you. She typed notes into her computer. I'll have the written report to your attorney by Monday morning. But for your peace of mind, there is 0 evidence of cognitive decline. None. Saturday, 1 p.m. Dr. Nicholas Ford's practice occupied a quiet building in Bozeman. Geriatric psychiatry, the sign read. Patrick had chosen him specifically, 30 years evaluating elderly patients, reputation for objectivity. This evaluation felt different. More conversational, though I knew every question was calculated. How has your mood been lately? complicated, family issues. Not tell me about that. I explained enough son-in-law claiming I was declining daughter, believing him the discovery of the manipulation. Dr. Ford listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. Under significant stress, then. Yet you're managing your ranch independently. Handling finances, maintaining property, caring for livestock. Every day for 43 years. He walked me through mental status questions, depression screening, anxiety assessment, testing my grip on reality, my understanding of the situation I faced. Finally, Mr. Foster, your cognitive function is remarkable. You're experiencing situational stress, which is entirely appropriate given what you've described. But there's no evidence of depression, no indication of impaired reality testing. You're not just competent, you're exceptionally clear-headed under circumstances that would break most people. Sunday, 9 a.m. Dr. Beverly Harper had been my physician for 15 years. She knew my medical history, had watched me age from 53 to 68 without significant issues. Patrick wanted her evaluation on record anyway. Comprehensive physical proving I wasn't just mentally sharp but physically capable. The examination was thorough. Blood pressure 128/78, exactly where it should be. Heart sounds strong, no arrhythmia. Lung capacity excellent. Reflexes normal. Gait steady, balance solid. Graham, you're healthier than people 20 years younger. Dr. Harper smiled, typing into her tablet. I'm documenting everything: your medication compliance, your annual checkups, your stable vitals over 15 years. Whoever's claiming you need supervised care is either lying or incompetent. She printed a summary, handed it to me. Give this to Patrick. I'll send the full evaluation Monday, but this covers the basics. You're fit, capable, and managing chronic conditions better than 90% of my patients. I sat in my truck afterward, reviewing the written summaries all 3 doctors had provided. 3 specialists, 3 reports, all saying the same thing. Cognition intact, physically capable, emotionally stable, fully competent. The irony hit hard. Randall had arranged Nash's evaluation to prove I was declining. Now I had 3 independent assessments proving the opposite. Nash's report would stand out like a sore thumb, a paid fiction contradicting objective medical reality. I called Patrick Sullivan, got the medical reports. How'd we do? Total victory. All 3 doctors said I'm competent. Dr. Manning called my cognition remarkable. Dr. Ford said I'm exceptionally clear-headed. Dr. Harper said I'm healthier than people 20 years younger. Patrick's satisfaction came through the phone. Excellent. Raymond's evaluations came back the same: 3 doctors, all confirming full capacity. Now Randall faces a problem. His paid evaluation against 6 independent ones. The math doesn't favor him. What about Nash? His reputation will be shredded. When the judge sees 3 neuropsychologists contradicting 1 paid hack, Nash's credibility evaporates. I'm also filing a complaint with the medical board. If he's done this to you and Raymond, he's done it to others. I felt the case strengthening around me like layers of protection. Medical evidence, financial forensics, recordings, community witnesses, every piece fitting together. Court date confirmed yet. Should be this week. I'll call when I know. Driving home, my phone buzzed. Text from Audrey. Randall just told me court date is confirmed. November 14th, 9 a.m., 2 weeks from today. He's celebrating. Said, it's finally happening. Dad, he thinks he's already won. I texted back, good. Overconfident opponents make mistakes. See you tomorrow? We have surveillance to do. Tomorrow night, we'd photograph Randall and Courtney together. The final piece of evidence. The hammer that would nail shut the coffin of his lies. Surveillance is patience. Whether you're watching for predators near your cattle or photographing your son-in-law's betrayal, the principle stays the same: hold position, stay quiet, wait for the moment to reveal itself. I'd tracked animals in worse conditions than a Bozeman hotel parking lot, but I'd never staked out family before. That was a different kind of cold. Monday evening, 6:30. Marcus Quinn's surveillance van sat in the back corner of the Marriott lot, far enough to avoid attention, but close enough for clear sightlines. The kind of vehicle that looked like any contractor's work truck. Plain white tinted windows, equipment inside hidden from casual view. Audrey sat beside me in the back, laptop open showing camera feeds. Craig occupied the front passenger seat, silent, his jaw working like he was grinding something down to powder. Marcus handled the technical setup, telephoto camera mounted on a stabilizer directional microphone, aimed at the fourth-floor balcony room Courtney had reserved, legal in Montana. Marcus reminded us as he calibrated equipment. Long as we're on public property and they're in view from public space, photography's fair game. Audio from a balcony facing public parking. Same rule applies for investigative purposes. The waiting was hardest. 43 years of ranching had taught me patience, but this was different. This wasn't watching for a difficult calving or waiting out bad weather. This was watching my daughter prepare to document her husband destroying our family. "You okay?" I asked Audrey quietly. She wiped her eyes, nodded. "I have to be." 7:15. A silver sedan pulled into the lot. Courtney Pierce, Craig's wife, stepping out alone. She checked her phone, adjusted her jacket, walked toward the hotel entrance with the casual confidence of someone who thought her secret was safe. Marcus's camera clicked, rapid fire. Timestamp 7:17 p.m. Clear shot of her face, her car's license plate, the hotel entrance. "Got her," Marcus murmured. 7:20. A second car, Randall's black BMW. He parked 3 spots away from Courtney's sedan, practiced distance, the spacing of people who'd done this before. He glanced around the parking lot with the wariness of someone checking for witnesses, then headed inside. More photos. 7:22 p.m. His face clear in the parking lot lights. His car. The hotel door closing behind him. Craig hadn't spoken since Courtney arrived. Now he made a sound, not quite a word, more like something breaking. "Steady," I said quietly. "We need this evidence." We waited. Marcus monitored the camera aimed at the 4th floor watching room windows. 8 o'clock movement caught his attention. Balcony, northeast corner, 4th floor. The telephoto brought them into sharp focus on Audrey's laptop screen. Randall and Courtney stepping outside, drinks in hand, his arm around her waist. The kind of casual intimacy that came from 18 months of practice. Marcus activated the directional microphone, adjusted gain levels. "Audio's live, recording to redundant drives." Through the headphones we all wore, their voices came clear despite the distance. "You promised we'd be together after this." Courtney's voice plaintive. "We will be, but timing matters." Randall sounded patient, explaining something obvious. "If I divorce Audrey before the guardianship goes through, she gets half of nothing. If I wait until we control Graham's assets and Raymond's money, I can structure the divorce favorably. Claim financial hardship from elder care costs. The prenup has clauses for that." "You're using her." Randall laughed, casual, unbothered. "I'm calculating strategically. Don't you want real money? Or would you rather stay married to an accountant forever?" Craig's hand shot to the van's door handle. I grabbed his shoulder, held firm. "Not yet. We need this recorded. All of it." He stayed, but I felt the tremor of rage running through him. "What about Craig?" Courtney asked. "Craig, he's useful. Once this wraps up, you can divorce him. We'll have enough money that his opinion won't matter anymore." Audrey watched through the camera's viewfinder, tears streaming silently down her face. Her husband, planning to destroy her father. Laughing while he did it. "How much longer?" Courtney pressed. Court dates November 14th. 2 weeks. The petitions filed today, both Graham and Raymond. Dr. Nash's evaluations are solid. My brother and my wife will testify supporting guardianship. The judge will see concerned family members trying to protect declining parents. By Thanksgiving, the assets transfer to guardian control. By Christmas, I file for divorce and we're free. Marcus adjusted the recording levels, making sure every word captured cleanly. This wasn't just evidence of an affair anymore. This was conspiracy documented in real time. Financial exploitation, elder abuse, all of it in Randall's own words recorded on a balcony because his arrogance made him careless. What if something goes wrong? Courtney asked. Nothing will go wrong. Graham's already showing confusion, the whole town's talking about it. Raymond's evaluation happens tomorrow. Once Nash writes his reports, the medical evidence is locked in. My attorney says it's a 90% win rate for guardianship cases like this. And Audrey really doesn't suspect. Audrey. Randall's laugh carried clear disdain. She's so guilty about her father, she'd believe anything I tell her. Women are emotional like that, you just have to leverage it properly. Audrey's hands shook holding the laptop. I wanted to tell her to look away, that she'd heard enough. But we needed this. Every word, every casual cruelty, every calculated betrayal. They stayed on the balcony another 10 minutes, discussing logistics timelines, what they'd do with the money. Marcus recorded it all, video audio timestamps matching GPS data proving location and date. When they finally went back inside, Marcus secured the equipment, copied files to 3 separate encrypted drives. Photos, timestamps, audio, he said, handing me a memory card. All legally obtained under Montana investigative statutes. This is nuclear Graham. Career ending for Nash, life destroying for Randall. No court could ignore this. Audrey wiped her tears, her voice steadier than her hands. I have to go home. Act normal. Pretend I didn't just watch my marriage end through that hotel window. Can you do that? I asked. I've been doing it for weeks. She looked at me and I saw steel under the grief. One more night won't kill me, but it might kill him legally. Craig's voice came flat, emotionless. Tomorrow I call Raymond. Tell him it's time. We have everything we need now. I looked back at the hotel 4th floor balcony, door closed. Randall and Courtney's shadows moving against curtained windows. Court's in 2 weeks. They think they're celebrating their plan. They have no idea they just handed us the tools to convict them. We drove away in silence, each processing what we'd witnessed. Audrey headed home to play the supportive wife. Craig to his empty house where his wife was still at a hotel with his brother. Me to a ranch that was supposed to be stolen in 2 weeks. My phone buzzed as I pulled into my drive. Text from Patrick Sullivan. Randall filed guardianship petitions today. For both you and Raymond, November 14th, court date confirmed. It's official, we're going to war. I texted back. We just got the ammunition. Day 8, Wednesday. The week before trial was a strange mix of silence and intensity. Randall thought he had 14 days to enjoy his victory. I had 14 days to prepare his exposure. I spent Wednesday afternoon making phone calls to people who'd known me for decades. Not asking for favors, just giving them the truth and letting them decide. Donna Mills answered on the first ring. She'd been buying cattle from me for 20 years. Graham, I've been expecting this call. Heard rumors in town. What's going on? I laid it out, Randall's guardianship petition, the claim that I was mentally declining the plan to seize control of my farm. Donna was silent for 5 seconds, then exploded. Stu, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. You negotiated a $4,000 difference on a 30-head contract last month and you had no calculator. I'll testify. What do you need? Next was Perry Jackson at the feed store. 30 years we'd been doing business. When I explained the situation, he shook his head. Randall's an idiot if he thinks anyone around here will believe you're losing it. You caught my pricing error 2 weeks ago, a mistake I didn't even notice. I'll be there, Graham. By the end of the day, I had statements from 12 community members, ranchers, business owners, veterinarians, all willing to testify. Day 9, Thursday. Patrick called that morning. Just filed 8 pre-trial objections. Targeting Nash's methodology, Randall's financial disclosure procedural issues. Judge will review them Monday. I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. How bad? Bad for them. We're questioning Nash's credentials, his 91% guardianship approval rate, the $15,000 payment from Randall, the lack of independent medical review. If the judge accepts even half our objections, Randall's case collapses before we present evidence.
Day 10, Friday.
Randall and Audrey came to dinner. I watched him closely. He was comfortable. Too comfortable. Made jokes about Thanksgiving plans, mentioned something about next steps with the farm. Audrey kept her expression neutral, but I saw her fingers tighten on her fork when he mentioned selling off the south pasture. After they left, I called Craig. How's he acting? Confident. Told me yesterday the hearing's a formality. Said Dad's evaluation went exactly as expected and yours will too. He's planning to celebrate Tuesday night. I felt the cold satisfaction settle in my chest. Let him plan. Days 11 to 12. Weekend. Saturday and Sunday were spent organizing. Not collecting evidence, we'd done that. This was about making it accessible, indexed, ready for Patrick to deploy. I spread everything across my kitchen table. 6 independent medical reports. 3 for me, 3 for Raymond, all confirming full cognitive capacity. Financial forensic analysis showing Randall's debts, the LLC structure, designed to hide assets, the payment to Nash. Over 15 hours of recorded conversations, all time-stamped, all legally obtained. 200 photographs documenting meetings, documents, surveillance. Witness statements from community members. 40 years of farm records proving consistent, competent management. By Sunday evening, everything was organized in labeled folders. Patrick could pull any piece of evidence in seconds. Day 13, Monday trial eve. Final strategy session with Patrick at his office. He reviewed Nash's assessment line by line, comparing it to our independent evaluations. The contrast was stark. Nash claims you showed signs of memory impairment, confusion about dates, difficulty with financial calculations. Patrick read. Meanwhile, Dr. Manning's neuropsych evaluation shows you performed better than 90% of your age group. Dr. Ford found 0 cognitive decline. Doctor, Harper said you're healthier than people 20 years younger. What's our play? We let Randall present his case first. Nash testifies, lays out his assessment. Audrey and Craig testify, initially supporting Randall, following the script. We don't object too aggressively. Let him think he's winning. Then we flip. Audrey plays the first recording, Randall explaining how he manipulated the evaluation. Craig follows with the financial evidence. We bring in our medical experts, community witnesses. By the time we're done, Randall won't just lose, he'll face potential fraud charges. That evening, I walked the farm under a sky full of stars. The air was cold, sharp, the kind of November night Vivian used to love. I thought about what we were risking. Not just the farm, though, that mattered, but legacy, trust, family. But I also thought about what we'd built. The evidence was overwhelming. The witnesses were solid. The strategy was sound. My phone buzzed. Group text from Patrick. Final check, everyone ready for tomorrow. Audrey, ready. Craig, ready. Raymond, ready. Let's finish this. I typed my reply. They have no idea what's waiting. The Bozeman courthouse looked like every government building I'd ever walked into, stone, imposing, designed to make you feel small before power. But I'd faced mountain storms and market collapses. A courtroom was just another test, and I'd studied for this one. Vivian always said justice was patient, never rushed. I kept that thought close as I walked through the metal detectors, past the marble columns, into the second-floor courtroom where my independence would be decided. 9 a.m. Court convenes. All rise. The Honorable Judge Carolyn Blake presiding. Judge Blake was in her early 60s, gray hair pulled back tight, reading glasses perched on her nose. She had a reputation, 30 years on the bench, known for seeing through polished arguments to find ugly truth underneath. That reputation was about to matter more than Randall understood. Please be seated. We're here for case number 2024-CV-1847, petition for guardianship of Graham Foster and Raymond Pierce. Counsel, state your appearances. Deborah Collins stood first. Mid-40s, expensive suit briefcase that probably cost more than a month's feed. Deborah Collins for petitioner Randall Pierce, Your Honor. Patrick rose beside me. Patrick Sullivan for respondents, Graham Foster and Raymond Pierce, Your Honor. I glanced across the aisle. Randall sat behind his attorney's shoulders, relaxed, small smile playing at his mouth. He wore a dark suit, looked concerned and responsible. The performance of a devoted son-in-law worried about his aging father-in-law. Behind him, Craig sat stone-faced. Audrey was in the gallery, hands folded in her lap, expression neutral. 9:15 a.m. Opening statement. Ms. Collins, you may proceed. Deborah stood, moved to the center of the courtroom. Thank you, Your Honor. This is a painful case about families protecting their loved ones. She painted the picture carefully. Graham Foster, devoted rancher, hard-working man, but showing troubling signs of decline. Memory lapses, confusion about dates, poor judgment. Raymond Pierce, retired principal widower, similarly struggling with cognitive issues that put him at risk. These families aren't acting out of greed, Your Honor. They're acting out of love and concern. They want to ensure their fathers receive proper care before tragedy strikes. Professional, sympathetic. If I didn't know the truth, I might have believed it myself. 9:30 a.m. Dr. Nash takes the stand. The petitioner calls Dr. Clifford Nash. Nash walked to the witness stand with practiced confidence. Mid-60s, silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses. He looked exactly like what he was supposed to be, an expert. After the oath, Deborah began. Dr. Nash, please describe your evaluation of Graham Foster. I conducted a comprehensive geriatric psychiatric assessment on October 28th. Mr. Foster exhibited significant cognitive decline. Memory deficits, he couldn't recall our previous conversation. Impaired judgment, confusion about financial matters. Disorientation regarding time and place. He spoke in measured tones, citing test results, clinical observations. To anyone who didn't know better, it sounded authoritative. And your recommendation? Mr. Foster requires supervised living arrangements and professional asset management. His current independence poses safety risks to himself and potentially others. I watched the judge take notes. Patrick sat still beside me, face unreadable. We'd planned for this, let Nash hang himself with his own rope. 10 a.m., neighbor testimony. Deborah called 3 witnesses, all carefully coached. First was a woman from town. I saw Mr. Foster at the feed store last month. He seemed confused about the change from his purchase. Had to count it 3 times. Second was a man who lived 2 miles south. Drove past his property in September. The fences looked run down, gates hanging crooked. Not like Graham to let things go like that. Third was someone who claimed to know Audrey. She mentioned her father was forgetting conversations, repeating himself. She seemed really worried. All lies. All delivered with concerned, sympathetic expressions. Randall's smile grew wider. 10:30 a.m., the turn. The petitioner calls Audrey Pierce. My daughter stood, walked to the witness stand. She wore a navy suit, hair pulled back, lawyer mode, fully engaged. She didn't look at me as she was sworn in. Ms. Pierce, you've known your father your entire life. Have you noticed recent changes in his behavior? Audrey's voice was steady, too steady. I recognized it as her courtroom voice, the one she used when she was playing a role. Yes, I have. The room went quiet. Raymond glanced at me. I nodded slightly, trust the plan. What changes have you observed? Memory lapses, difficulty with dates, confusion about conversations we'd had. Randall settled back in his chair. Craig showed no emotion behind him. Do you believe your father needs help? Audrey paused, looked at me. Our eyes met across the courtroom. Actually, the silence stretched. Randall leaned forward, slightly expectant. Audrey took a breath. Actually, I need to correct my previous statements. The courtroom stirred. Randall's face confusion. I was about to say, I believe my father needs help, but I can't. Because nothing I just said was true. The courtroom erupted. Randall half rose from his seat. Audrey, what are you? Judge Blake's gavel cracked. Order Ms. Pierce, explain yourself. Audrey reached into her purse, pulled out her phone. Your Honor, I'd like to submit evidence. Recordings made over the past 3 weeks of Randall Pierce confessing to a fraudulent conspiracy. Randall's face shock shifting to fury. Deborah Collins shot to her feet. Objection, Your Honor. This witness was called by the petitioner. Patrick Sullivan rose smoothly. Your Honor, Ms. Pierce is actually our witness. She's been cooperating with the respondent's investigation. We also have testimony from Craig Pierce. The judge looked toward Craig, who stood and walked forward. I watched Randall's face as his brother approached the witness stand. Betrayal written clear across his features. Craig. Randall's voice cracked. Craig didn't look at him. Sat down in the witness chair. Judge Blake's eyes were steel. This court is very interested in these recordings. Ms. Pierce, Mr. Sullivan, proceed. In the cattle business, you learn that truth is stronger than lies. Lies need maintenance justification, more lies stacked on top. Truth just sits there solid as fence posts waiting to be witnessed. Vivian used to say recordings don't forget or embellish. They just exist exactly as they are. Today, Randall's own words would prove that. 11 a.m., Craig's testimony. Patrick stood. Mr. Pierce, you initially participated in this guardianship petition. Why? Craig's voice was steady, controlled. Because my brother manipulated me. He told me our father was declining, that we were protecting him. I believed him because he's my brother. Randall stared, unable to process what was happening. When did you learn the truth? 2 weeks ago. Graham Foster showed me evidence that Randall had been having an affair with my wife for the past 18 months. The courtroom exploded. Courtney, sitting in the gallery, began crying. Randall shot to his feet. That's not... Judge Blake's gavel cracked like lightning. Mr. Pierce, sit down immediately. Craig continued, his voice carrying over the chaos. After I learned about the affair, I realized Randall was using my wife to keep me compliant. If I questioned the scheme, he had leverage. He manipulated Audrey, manipulated me, bribed a doctor, all for money. 11:30 a.m. First recording. Audrey connected her phone to the courtroom speakers. Your Honor, this recording is from 2 weeks ago. My husband didn't know I was recording. She pressed play. Randall's voice filled the room, confident and cold. Randall's voice. Your dad's had his time, Audrey. Now it's our turn. I see $3 million sitting dead on land doing nothing. Raymond has $2 million he doesn't need. We're in our 40s renting an apartment. I'm taking the opportunity. Audrey's voice. What about Courtney? Randall's voice. She's a convenient tool. Keeps Craig cooperative. Makes the scheme look legitimate, 2 families concerned about aging fathers. Audrey stopped the recording. Looked directly at Randall. You used everyone. Randall's face was pure rage. He stood shouting, You betrayed me. Bailiffs, Judge Blake commanded. 12 p.m. Additional recordings. Patrick played the second recording, a call between Randall and Craig. Randall's voice. Dr. Nash will write whatever we need. I paid him $15,000. He understands these situations. Craig's voice. That's smart. Randall's voice. It's business, brother. Judge Blake's eyes locked onto Dr. Nash, who had gone pale. 12:15 p.m. Hotel surveillance audio. Your Honor, we also have audio from a private detective's surveillance legally obtained. The balcony conversation played. Randall's voice. If I divorce Audrey before we have guardianship, she gets half of nothing. If I wait until we control the assets, I can structure the divorce favorably. Courtney's voice. You're using her. Randall's voice, laughing. I'm strategizing. Don't you want real money? Audrey watched Randall's face as his plans were exposed to the entire courtroom. The climax. Judge Blake's voice cut through the chaos like steel through fog. See, I've heard enough. Mr. Pierce, you attempted to use this court to steal from your own family. You corrupted a medical expert, manipulated your wife and brother, and have shown zero remorse. She looked at Dr. Nash. Doctor, you will be reported to the State Medical Board. Your assessment is rejected. She turned to Deborah Collins. Counsel, were you aware of any of this? Deborah Pale shook her head. No, Your Honor. I was provided information I believe to be accurate. Then you bear no fault, but your client faces serious questions. Judge Blake looked at Randall, now being restrained by bailiffs after his outburst. Mr. Pierce, I dismiss both guardianship petitions. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation of fraud, conspiracy, and witness tampering. She turned to Raymond and me. Mr. Foster, Mr. Pierce, I apologize that this had to come before my court. You are clearly competent individuals who were targeted. Then back to Randall. You are held in contempt of court. Bailiffs remove him. As Randall was led away, he screamed, This isn't over, Audrey. You destroyed everything. Audrey watched him go, feeling nothing. But the judge wasn't finished. We'll reconvene after lunch for final testimony. I want to hear directly from Mr. Foster and Mr. Pierce. After months of recordings, evidence, and exposed lies, everything narrowed to something simple. A 68-year-old rancher explaining to a judge why he deserved to live free on land he had worked for 48 years. Vivian used to say, I was better at doing than talking. But some truths must be spoken aloud, witnessed, and entered into the record. When Patrick called me to the stand that afternoon, I felt every eye in the courtroom. The morning had unraveled Randall's scheme, Audrey's turn, the recordings played in open court, Craig's quiet decision to testify against his own brother. Now it was my turn. Mr. Foster, how old are you? Patrick asked. 68, ranching 48 years. Describe your daily routine. I did. Dawn over the bitter roots. Livestock checks before breakfast. Moving cattle through pasture with practiced efficiency. Equipment maintenance, tractors and fence lines don't repair themselves. Afternoon, financial management, reviewing cattle prices, planning feed purchases, adjusting seasonal budgets. Decisions shaped by decades of experience, not confusion. How large is your operation? 280 acres. Grazing pasture, hayfields, full facilities. 120 head of Black Angus. I've managed it alone since my wife died 5 years ago. Any difficulty managing it? I met the judge's gaze. Montana winters hit 40 below. Markets rise and fall. Equipment fails at the worst moments. That's ranching. Difficult doesn't mean incapable. I handle what comes. Patrick let the words settle before holding up the medical reports. 3 independent physicians evaluated you this weekend. All found normal cognitive function. How do you explain, Doctor? Nash's conclusion. Dr. Nash never examined me, I said. You can't diagnose a man you've never met. He wrote what he was paid to write. Patrick then presented 40 years of records. Financial statements filled the courtroom screen, neat columns, accurate figures, decades of documented transactions. Livestock logs followed vaccination schedules, breeding programs, weight gains reflecting professional management. Maintenance records appeared current, organized, thorough. Tax returns filed on time every year. Bank statements showing independent deposits, withdrawals, and transfers. Are these the records of a declining man? Patrick asked. Judge Blake spoke before opposing counsel could object. I can read the records. Continue. Community witnesses followed. Donna Mills described how I diagnosed her tractor's fuel injection problem last month, saving her hundreds. Perry Jackson from the feed store testified my account was balanced to the penny. Dr. Roger Bailey, County Veterinarian, confirmed my herd was among the healthiest in the region because of attentive professional care. They were not there to flatter. They stated facts. Raymond testified next with the steady voice of a former principal. He detailed his independent finances, his volunteer work, his active community life. His story mirrored mine, two competent men targeted not for incapacity, but for assets. He explained the scheme plainly driven by greed, not concern. After Raymond stepped down, Judge Blake reviewed the evidence in silence. Papers shuffled softly. The screen still displayed decades of documented competence. Randall's chair sat empty. He had been removed earlier for contempt. Finally, the judge spoke. I have presided over guardianship cases for 30 years, she began. Some are legitimate families protecting loved ones who can no longer protect themselves. This is not one of those cases. She looked from Raymond to me. You are both clearly competent. Your medical evaluations, financial records, and testimony establish that beyond doubt. More than competent, you are thriving. Mr. Foster, your ranch operations demonstrate remarkable capability. Mr. Pierce, your financial management is exemplary. Her gaze shifted toward the empty chair. What occurred here was not protection. It was a conspiracy to steal disguised as concern. Mr. Randall Pierce attempted to misuse guardianship laws to seize control of millions of dollars. He manipulated family members, sought to corrupt medical evaluation, and displayed no remorse when confronted. Then she turned to Audrey. Ms. Pierce, your father is fortunate. Not every family has someone willing to choose truth over comfort. You corrected a wrong. Audrey's eyes filled, but she did not look away. I dismiss both guardianship petitions with prejudice, Judge Blake continued. I order Mr. Randall Pierce to have no contact with Graham Foster or Raymond Pierce. I refer this matter to the district attorney for investigation. Mr. Pierce will pay all court costs and attorney fees. The gavel struck once. These men retain their freedom, their property, and their dignity. Court adjourned. The room slowly exhaled. Audrey reached me first, wrapping her arms around me. Dad, I'm sorry. I held her. You came back. That's what matters. Craig approached, face tight but steady. Thank you for showing me the truth. Raymond joined us, and for the first time in months I saw him smile without strain. Graham, we won. We did. Patrick stepped forward, practical as ever. The district attorney will request statements. Randall faces serious charges, fraud, conspiracy, possibly more. Legally, proceedings continue. But your guardianship threat is finished. Freedom. That word carried weight. I looked at Audrey. Are you ready for what comes next? She wiped her eyes and nodded. Divorce. Rebuilding. Doing it right this time. Raymond placed a hand on Craig's shoulder. The fracture in that family would take time, but truth had given it a foundation. The courtroom emptied around us, lawyers collecting files, observers whispering, the echo of finality still hanging in the air. I thought about the ranch waiting at home, fences needing inspection, cattle unaware of courtrooms and conspiracies, life continuing steady and real. For months I had gathered evidence, recorded conversations, studied statutes, and prepared for battle. In the end, it came down to standing straight, speaking plainly, and letting facts speak louder than fear. Vivian would have understood that. As we stepped into the October afternoon, the air was crisp and clean. The mountains stood unchanged against the sky. I felt something settle inside me, not triumph, but restoration. They had tried to take my freedom through paperwork and deception. The law had seen through it. I turned to Audrey. Let's go home. And for the first time since this began, that word felt entirely secure. Winning in court was one thing. Living with what you'd won and what you'd lost was another. The farm was still mine. Freedom was mine. But Audrey's marriage was over, Craig's life was shattered, and Randall would face consequences that would stretch for years. Vivian always said every victory had its cost, but some costs were worth paying. The morning after the trial, I watched the brief news segment showing Randall being arrested at his attorney's office. The charges were read in clinical language: conspiracy to defraud, elder exploitation, witness tampering. I felt no joy watching him led away in handcuffs, just a weary relief that spread through my chest, like warmth after coming in from the cold. By Saturday, Audrey arrived at the farm with her car packed full of boxes. She stood in the driveway for a long moment before speaking. "I can't stay in that house anymore, Dad. Everything reminds me of him." I helped her carry the first box inside. "Your old room hasn't changed since you left." She looked around the house, the kitchen where Vivian used to bake bread, the living room with the stone fireplace we'd built together, the hallway lined with family photos from better times. Her eyes filled with tears. "How do I rebuild from this wreckage?" I set the box down and looked at my daughter. "Same way you build anything. One day at a time." Sunday brought a different kind of validation. At church, members of the community approached us in the parking lot afterward. Perry Jackson shook my hand firmly. "Proud you stood up, Graham." Donna Mills hugged Audrey. "He got what he deserved." Dr. Bailey clasped my shoulder. "Your family's in our prayers." It was small-town justice, public vindication that mattered more than I'd expected. Monday morning, Audrey drove to Bozeman to meet with a divorce attorney. She came back that evening looking exhausted but determined. "He says it's straightforward," she told me over dinner. "Montana law includes adultery as grounds. With the affair evidence and the criminal charges, there shouldn't be complications. Minimum 6 months, though. 6 months to legally end what had already been destroyed." I nodded, passed her the potatoes, and we ate in the comfortable silence of people who understood that some things didn't need words. Tuesday's call from Craig came while I was fixing a fence gate that had been sticking. "I filed for divorce from Courtney," he said without preamble. "She's moving to Seattle next week. Can't face the community after what came out in court." "I'm sorry, Craig." Don't be. I'm not." He paused, and I could hear traffic in the background. "I've been having dinner with Dad twice this week. We're actually talking first real conversations in years. He told me about teaching about Mom, about things I never asked about before." That's good," I said, meaning it. "Graham." His voice caught slightly. "Thank you. For not letting Randall destroy everything. For showing me the truth." Midweek, Raymond and I met for coffee at the Meadowlark Cafe, the same place where we'd first formed our alliance, but this time as friends, rather than just allies united against a common threat. He stirred his coffee slowly, watching the steam rise. "So kids do? Craig's temporarily moved back home," Raymond said. "Helping me with some repairs I've been putting off. Says he wants to make up for lost time." He looked up, met my eyes. "Think he means it?" "Redemption is possible," I said. Raymond nodded slowly. "For some people, not all." We both knew who he meant. Thursday evening found us on the porch, Audrey and me sitting in the same chairs where I'd sat alone that Sunday morning, weeks ago, overhearing the conspiracy that had started all of this. The air was colder now, late November, settling into early winter, but we'd bundled up in coats and brought out coffee. "I keep thinking about how close we came," Audrey said quietly, watching the stars emerge over the Bitterroot Mountains. "If you hadn't forgotten your hearing aid that morning, or if I'd confronted you immediately instead of investigating, or if I'd been too scared to wear that recorder, or if Craig hadn't chosen his father over his brother." The silence stretched between us, comfortable now, filled with Montana stars and the distant sound of cattle settling for the night. "Dad." Audrey's voice was small, younger than her 38 years. Do you forgive me? I looked at my daughter, complicated career marriage ending, living in her childhood bedroom, with boxes she hadn't yet unpacked. She'd made terrible choices, believed lies, nearly participated in destroying me. But she'd also found the courage to choose truth when it mattered most. Didi, I forgave you the moment you played that recording in court, I said. You came back. That's what matters. Audrey leaned her head against my shoulder, just like when she was small, and we'd sit on this same porch watching summer thunderstorms roll across the valley. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Patrick Sullivan, DA's office, called. Randall accepted a plea deal, 5 years prison restitution for your and Raymond's legal costs. Avoids trial, admits guilt. Thought you'd want to know. 5 years. Not enough for what he'd tried to do. But justice of a kind. I texted back. Thanks. What about the protective order? His response came quickly. Active. He can't contact you, Audrey, Raymond, or Craig for 10 years after release. Everyone's safe. Safe. I looked out at my farm, felt my daughter's weight against my shoulder. Thought about the land Vivian and I had built together, stone by stone, fence post by fence post, season by season. We were safe and free and together. Tomorrow we'd start rebuilding. A year after the trial, autumn returned to Montana with familiar rhythms, cattle preparing for winter fields, turning golden early season snow, dusting the mountain peaks. The farm was thriving. So was my family. Vivian used to say autumn was for harvest, for gathering what you'd sown. This Thanksgiving, I understood what she meant. The farmhouse was full for the first time since Vivian died. Audrey moved between the kitchen and dining room, setting out dishes with the practiced ease of someone who'd grown up doing this. She lived in Bozeman, now had opened her own law practice, specializing in elder advocacy. The work suited her, turned what had happened into something meaningful. Dad, you don't need to do all this, she said as I checked the turkey. I've cooked Thanksgiving dinner for 45 years, not stopping now. Still proving you're competent. No, just living. By mid-afternoon, the house filled with voices. Brian arrived from Boston with his family, wrapped me in a bear hug that reminded me he was still my son, even if distance had made him feel like a stranger during the trial. Dad, we should have been here. I'm sorry. You're here now. That's what matters. Rachel, who'd flown in from Denver, helped set the table. She'd called every week during the investigation, never doubting, always supporting. And Audrey says you and Raymond started some kind of advocacy group. Raymond, who'd arrived with Craig, jumped in from the living room. Montana Elder Justice Alliance. We help seniors identify and fight exploitation. Had our third case last month, situation similar to ours. His voice carried the satisfaction of purpose found late in life. Craig added, I handle the forensic financial work, help other families see the patterns. The accountant who'd nearly helped destroy his father now used those same skills to protect others. Audrey caught my eye across the room. And I handle the legal side pro bono. It's healing. Turning what happened into something good. When we finally sat down to eat, I stood at the head of the table with Vivian's photo watching from the mantel. Before we eat, I want to say something. This time last year, I thought I understood family loyalty, trust. Then I learned those things could be broken. I paused, met Audrey's eyes. But I also learned they could be rebuilt. I looked at each person in turn. My daughter made mistakes, but had the courage to fix them. Craig chose truth over easy lies. Raymond stood with me when we both could have just given up. And my children, even from far away, supported me through it all. I raised my glass. This year I'm grateful for truth, for courage, for family that came back, and for second chances. After dinner, Audrey and I walked outside onto the same porch, where everything had started, the same view stretching before us under different stars. You know what the hardest part is, Audrey said quietly. Not the divorce, not changing careers. It's living with the truth that I almost helped him destroy you. But you didn't. Only because you were smarter than he thought. If you'd been a little less capable, a little less strategic. But I wasn't. That's the point, Audrey. Randall made the same mistake so many others make, assuming age equals decline. That 68 means helpless. That gray hair means easy target. The Montana wind carried the scent of hay, of cattle, of land I'd worked for nearly 5 decades. Your mother and I built this farm from nothing, survived droughts, market crashes, and 3 teenage children. I smiled. Takes more than a manipulative son-in-law to take me down. Audrey laughed, the first real laugh I'd heard from her in months. I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart. Through the window, I watched my family. Raymond and Craig, with their relationship rebuilt, laughing together. Brian's children running circles around the dining table, the next generation. Rachel showing Audrey something on her phone, both of them smiling. Vivian's photo, watching it all from the mantel. I kept it, I whispered to her picture. The farm, the family, everything we built. Wasn't easy, but I kept it. The land stretched dark beneath the stars. My land, my home, my life still mine, earned through 68 years of living, 48 years of ranching, and one strategic battle against people who thought I was too old to defend myself. I'm 68 years old, not finished, not declining, not going anywhere. And anyone who thinks otherwise will ask Randall how that worked out. I stepped back inside to my family, to the Thanksgiving dinner, to the life I'd fought to keep. Looking back at this family story, I realize how close I came to losing everything. Not because I was incapable, but because someone assumed my age made me vulnerable. If you're watching this and you see yourself in my situation, learn from what I did right and what I did wrong. Don't wait until you overhear a conspiracy to protect yourself. Document everything now. Build relationships with your community. Keep your medical records current. And most importantly, don't assume family loyalty means you're safe from exploitation. This dad revenge wasn't about anger. It was about strategic defense. When Randall targeted me, he made a fundamental miscalculation. He thought gray hair meant an easy mark. What he didn't account for was 48 years of problem-solving crisis management and the kind of patience that only comes with age. My advice: if you're facing something similar, don't confront immediately. Gather evidence first. Build your case quietly. Find allies who understand the stakes. Here's what this family story taught me about human nature: greed can corrupt anyone, but redemption is possible for those willing to choose truth. Audrey made terrible mistakes, but she found the courage to correct them. Craig was manipulated, but he learned to see clearly. Not everyone gets that chance. Randall certainly didn't take it, but those who do deserve our support as they rebuild. I'm a man of faith, and I believe God puts challenges in our path, not to break us, but to strengthen us. This trial tested everything I thought I knew about family trust and my own capabilities. But it also revealed blessings I hadn't recognized: a community that stood with me, a daughter who chose integrity over comfort, and the resilience that comes from a life well lived. My dad revenge ended up being more than just protecting my farm. It became about protecting others. The Montana Elder Justice Alliance now helps families recognize exploitation before it's too late. That's the real victory: turning pain into purpose, using experience to serve others. So here's my challenge to you. If this story resonated, drop a comment below telling me what you would have done differently. Would you have confronted immediately, or would you have investigated like I did? Share this video with anyone who might be facing elder exploitation. Every parent deserves to age with dignity. And if you want to hear more stories about standing up for what's right, hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us reach families who need this information. Thank you for following my journey to the very end. I appreciate every one of you who invested time in this family story. Before you go, I need to mention upcoming stories may contain some fictionalized elements created for educational purposes. If that's not your preference, feel free to explore other content that better suits your interests. But if you're ready for real talk about real challenges, stick around, because we're just getting started.